Okay, we'll come to order. Today is the Wednesday, December 15th, regular meeting of the Glendale Planning Commission. Would you call roll, please?
Here. Here.
Here. Report regarding posting of agenda.
The agenda for this meeting was posted on Wednesday, December 8th, 2010 on the bulletin board outside City Hall and on the city's website.
All right. Would everyone please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of minutes from the December 1st meeting. Any comments or corrections?
I move that we accept the minutes of Wednesday, December 1st.
I would actually make a comment to that. Is as far as minutes go, these are really getting kind of sparse. I mean, if that's the way things are supposed to be, fine. But wow. Yeah,
our direction has been now to take action minutes, so they're quite brief.
All right, fair enough then. Yeah, I mean, because my memory was it was about a 3-hour meeting, but from the minutes it.
More than that.
All right, we have a motion and support. Would you call roll, please?
Aye. Yeah, aye. Aye. Or we just have a vote of.
I almost said here as well. Aye, and a vote of 4-0. The minutes of December 1st, 2010 were approved. Under oral communications, I have no speaker cards. Under zoning appeals, old business, none. New business was the appeal of revocation of conditional use permit, case 10774CU for 2612 Honolulu Avenue, and there's a notation that's withdrawn by the applicant.
That's correct.
So, and that's just off calendar, boom.
Correct.
All right. So no action on our part.
Right.
Right. We'll move on to Planning Commission items 7A, tentative parcel map GLN 1625, which is 2246 through 2248 Raphael Terrace. And this is a request to subdivide a 3.13 acre vacant site into two parcels for single-family residential development in the R1R restricted residential zone, floor area district 2, described as portions of lot 2 and 3, tract number 919. And again, our understanding is you'd like us to continue this to a date certain?
Correct. The applicant said that he's ill and he's unable to attend. He's asked that this item be continued to your next meeting, which would be January 19th, 2011.
Unless there's any feelings to the contrary, would someone make a motion to extend it to that date certain? Or continue it, rather?
I second. Second, yeah.
Motion, support, call roll, please.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. On a vote of 4-0, the Planning Commission has agreed to continue GLN 1625 to January 19th, we said?
Yes, January 19th.
2011.
And I do want to confirm
without
that.
further
notice.
notification.
Correct. Thank you.
Our notice. Thank you. We'll move on to 7B. It's a wireless telecommunication facility review. Case number PWTF 2010-001. It's located at 1470 Del Monte Drive, which is Verdugo Park Stengel Baseball Field. The applicant is Kim Ice. It's a request to co-locate a wireless telecommunication facility on an existing light standard in the SR Special Recreation Zone. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve the variance case, and it is noted as being CEQA exempt. Staff overview.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. Just a small correction. There is a new applicant. Karen Sipp will be taking over the place of Kim Ice. Just wanted to note that for the record. Again, this project is located at 1470 Del Monte Drive. This is an environmental review which has been exempt from CEQA standards. On to staff analysis regarding the overall project and scope. The wireless telecommunication ordinance requires that 8 findings of fact are met in regards to this application. So here's my analysis in regards to those findings. The proposed project involves the construction of 6 antennas on existing light standard with new mechanical equipment located on the ground. The 6 new antennas will be slightly smaller in design and will attach directly beneath the antennas as indicated on the plans. The proposed mechanical equipment will be located within an existing equipment shelter and will be screened partially by a block wall and partially by a chain link fence. The light standard and equipment shelter are located in a corner of the park that is not used for recreation, behind the fence outlining the baseball field diamond, and immediately adjacent to a wastewater treatment plant. Both the existing panels and existing lights are larger than the new proposed antennas. The exhibits posted behind you show a photo simulation of, if I may approach, this is probably the best image that we have, is what the current condition is and what the new proposal will be. Staff's analysis is based upon information provided in the application with propaganda models that show extra antennas will be necessary to fill significant gaps in coverage. The supplemental information packet explains alternative locations and configurations on the site will not increase community compatibility or not reasonably vis-a-vis. Steve Ronick, the city's wireless administrator, has reviewed the application and has agreed that the overall application is consistent with the intent of the ordinance. The applicant has noted that all local, state, and federal compliance with regulations will be maintained during the existence of the facility. It also should be noted that pursuant to Section 704, Title VII of the Federal Communications Act in 1996, that federal government may regulate the environmental effects on radio frequency emissions from wired telecommunication facility. Therefore, alleged health risks from such facilities are not within the purview of the Planning Commission. With that said, staff recommends approval with conditions of this project. That concludes staff's presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Questions for staff?
Yeah, what's the maximum allowed on this pole? As far as, once they complete this, how much more?
There isn't a limitation.
There's no limitation?
No, it comes back for review to the Planning Commission, and it's up to the Planning Commission to make that judgment.
Talk to us a little bit about how you determined that there is a significant gap.
Our city's wireless administrator was acting as our expert review. He reviewed the entire supplemental package. Then we had a meeting. He then agreed that these antennas do support this significant gap in coverage. It was our wireless administrator that made that determination, not myself.
Okay. On page 7 of 12 of the application, there is a question, a question, I guess, 5.10, 510, and it says, will this proposed site be interconnected, and so on and so forth, and then you type yes. And as I understand it, if the answer is yes, then you're supposed to complete 5.15, which is to identify by physical address all other sites. Am I understanding this form correctly? And if I am, where would that answer to 5.15 be?
Okay. I will look into that, sir.
I don't know that I have any other questions at this time. Anyone else? All right, we'll allow the applicant to speak to us if they so choose.
Good evening. And the finding of fact.
I'm sorry, and you do need to introduce yourself.
I'm sorry. My name is Karen Sipp, SIPP, and I'm on behalf of the applicant, Clearwire Sprint.
All right.
To the maximum extent reasonably feasible, the proposed wireless telecommunications facility has been designed to achieve compatibility within the community. The site was chosen because of the co-location rather than putting up a brand new site in the area. Alternative configurations will not increase community compatibility or are not reasonably feasible. There were no alternative configurations for this area, this was the best location by putting the antennas, again, on an existing site. Alternative locations on the site will not increase community compatibility or are not reasonably feasible. Again, there were no alternative locations for this site, and we chose it based on the ability for co-location. The location of the wireless telecommunications facility on alternative sites will not increase community compatibility or is not reasonably feasible. Again, same as before, there are no alternative sites within this area, and it was chosen again with the site already being built and having co-location compatibility. The facility is necessary to maintain a gap or to cover I'm sorry, the word is messed up here, is necessary for the gap in coverage. This particular wireless telecommunication facility is going to be part of a new broadband network being built in the greater Los Angeles area. And the co-location on this site is essential to close the gap in coverage. And that was part of the propagation map that was in the exhibit attached. The applicant has submitted a statement of willingness to allow other carriers to co-locate on the proposed wireless telecommunications facility whenever technically and economically feasible and where co-location would not harm the community compatibility. This doesn't really apply because we are the co-locator on the existing site. Clearwire is an affiliate of Sprint, and Sprint is the main lessee, and Sprint would have no objection to other carriers co-locating on the same light standard in the future if necessary. Noise generated by equipment will not be unnecessary, excessive, annoying, or detrimental to public health and safety or welfare. The proposed co-location is on an existing wireless telecommunications facility, and there will be minimal changes. It will not be excessively annoying or detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare. The facility complies with all requirements of state and federal laws, regulations, and orders. The proposed wireless telecommunications facility must comply with federally adopted health and safety thresholds established by the Federal Communications Act of 1996. This wireless telecommunications facility will operate in full compliance with the standards for RF emissions as published by the Act of 1996. That's it. Do you have any
Questions for the applicant?
Yeah, what's the color going to be?
We
I thought I saw
proposed
that somewhere in the application,
painting to
but I don't
match.
remember.
I believe it's just a galvanized steel that's up there now. If the commission would like us to paint a specific color, we'd be more than happy to.
Cool colors.
School colors.
So paint to match is what you're stating?
Yeah,
Correct.
Stainless steel.
Out of curiosity, what's the lease term with the city? How many years?
I would have to take a look back at the lease. I do not have that with me. I can find that information.
It
and
was
get it back
just
to you.
more
Oh, okay.
curiosity than anything. It's
Sorry
really
about
not.
that.
And then is Jeremy Moreau still going to be the radio frequency engineer?
He was the RF engineer at the time that this was designed. However, he is no longer with the company. There's a new RF engineer taking over for him.
Would you, I'll redirect this to staff later when you're done, would you consider that a key substitution or just no big deal? You can answer it when we come back to you. I presume it's no big deal, but let's confirm that. Anything else for the speaker, or the applicant, rather? Seeing none, you'll actually have a rebuttal period. I don't know that that'll be required, but you'll have that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Staff, have you been able to get to the bottom of 5.05? Or, I'm sorry, whatever the number was?
1-5. I have a
We
question.
did get a map, but we didn't get the technical data for how the sites would be linked, as the application seems to ask for. If honestly, this is one of our first applications in this new process. As you can see, the application is 12
lengthy.
pages long. Yeah. So I guess just missed that one piece of it. Commission would like to put it off while we get that. If you feel it's important to your decision, we can do that.
Well, I'll also ask the applicant, do you happen to know, please approach if you wouldn't mind, do you happen to know what other sites are being interconnected to this site?
I would have to double check. I don't know if the propagation map lists other sites that are on there, but we could absolutely get a list to you for the sites within the city of Glendale, if that's what you'd like.
Didn't get that.
Well, I really need to step back and consider if this is really important or not. I just don't know. I just noticed that it's asked for and it's not provided. So now we'll have to kind of decide if it's important or not. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we'll continue with our questions for staff. I know, Mr. Sheets, you had something?
Yeah, a couple things come to mind. First, let me ask a question about the application. And I don't know who can answer this, maybe staff. And looking at the poll, one of the things that you keep in mind if you've ever climbed poles is the climbing space. Now, I may be off, maybe working on these light poles is done from the ground or with a lift of some type, but the light standards are pretty high, and there are steps there. But I guess my question would be, is this placement of the second array of antennas, will it cause any problem for maintenance on the lights? Seems like a silly question, but it just occurred to me when I was looking at it. They definitely would not be able to go close to the light just by climbing the pole. They'd have to have some other means. It's not a game breaker. I mean, it's not the first time it's done, but it's something to keep in mind.
Staff routed the plans to Water and Power. Water and Power did not come back with any major concerns regarding the overall height. That was not one of the...
Who owns the assemblies above this installation? You know, who's going to be potentially blocked?
I believe it is Sprint.
Plus
Sprint.
the lights
They own the
are
light.
During rebuttal, please testify that you own everything above this assembly.
I believe it is Sprint. Based on the previous Planning Commission application for the initial antennas, that application states that Sprint owns those antennas at that time in 2005. The light standard is the city of Glendale.
So assuming that's the case, they're creating their own problems, which is good.
something to consider if it has ramifications. And I guess the other question or the other thought that comes to mind, since this is a new process, we have a lot of information, but we went through it very rapidly. And I know that when we put this process together, there was a lot more detail and a lot more scrutinization as far as what went in, where it went, why it went there. And I guess that might be in the form, but I think I would be more comfortable if the person that received the propagation map that makes the final decision on whether that is adequate or realistic or not should probably be here. Other than that, we don't know. We're just assuming that, based on testimony, that they said it was okay. But if I had any questions for them, I think we had one question already about other locations. And I didn't get the propagation map in my packet, but just looking at what we have, I'm sure I couldn't tell from that. So I don't know if anybody else felt that there was something lacking in the process, but that's one item that comes to mind, a little more detail about what we received and why this needs to be the location. I know one of the defaults was trying to co-locate, which is smart. It's more efficient, but if there are other locations, if there's a chance of future antennas coming in and maybe not room on this post, I don't know how we would find that information without an expert here.
Well, it actually raises, again, the process that if staff's going to rely on an expert, which is a good idea, if that expert's not going to be available to testify, there ought to be some document. And maybe I've missed it where he, makes a statement or, advises that he's reviewed it. I mean, we've got your testimony that he did so, but, maybe there ought to be a little more of a paper trail in terms of what the expert has found. Kind of building on what you were saying.
That's all I have.
All right. Any other questions for staff? I want to go back then to that 5.10 and 5.15. So the question is asked, and again, this is a very technical form. I'm a layperson, so I'm going to rely on experts to a great extent. But it's a technical form. They specifically ask the question that they want to know the answers. So not having the answers, how important is that? And is there anyone at the staff level that can allay potential concerns over that? Because it's a question asked that's not answered.
The question asks about will the site be interconnected via radio frequency transmissions to any other site? Honestly, I don't know why that question was asked. I know that when we were putting this ordinance together, that some of the technical experts that the city attorney's office had engaged suggested that this be in here, although I'm not going to even try to fake any kind of
Right.
technical expertise as to why that is important. I know that more general, this isn't go to that question exactly, but another topic you're talking about, co-location really is the preferred method, and state law, as a matter of fact, had this facility, when it was originally built, received environmental clearance through a neg deck, we wouldn't even be able to have any discretion to say no to this at all. The state has written that into the law, that that's how much they favor co-location for obvious reasons.
Well, I think the co-location aspect of things is terrific, but again, I'm looking at,
Yeah, I understand.
Please.
I think from my perspective, this question 510, as I remember being at these meetings, what I recollect was that part of the reasoning for knowing about other sites, current, future, potential sites, was so that we could be part of the process, or our expert could be part of the process, as to whether placing the new array would be appropriate at that location today based on what might be happening in the near future. And that, as soon as you brought it up and I reread it, I realized that's why it would be important to have an expert here for us to ask that question. Not that I would have thought of it, but now that I have read through the question, it just makes me think one of the important factors of this whole process was that we have a better look and we can reflect more on what's here today. Is that appropriate? What's it going to look like tomorrow? And then as we continue to grow and have new technology, is that going to expand, contract? Are there new sites that are going to go in 6 months, a year, 2 years, that it might be better to not use that site? And maybe, and this is all engineering stuff that I'm not an expert on, but it's just from a broad, high view, it makes me think that that would be important to know. So I think that's the thinking I get and the sense I get around that question. I think it's important. Another reason why it would be good to get appropriate expert input in future meetings.
I mean, perhaps you can answer this, or perhaps the applicant can, perhaps staff can. In this specific inquiry, it talks about for the purpose, one or more radio frequency links for the purpose provide for, I think the wording's poor, for backhaul. Is there anyone in this room that can tell me what backhaul is? Can you? Can the applicant? Then please do in a moment. Thank you. I'm pleased that you can, because Of all the people in the room, you would be the one I would hope that would have that answer. Okay. Anything else for staff?
Not me.
All right, rebuttal time, please.
Not being the RF expert, but in very layman's terms, backhaul refers to the new technology that this 4G broadband network will be providing. And when you look at the photo simulations, the backhaul antennas are the round dishes. And they are the ones that are interconnecting with each and every site. And they have to have a clear line of path to go from one site to the other to transmit and receive the frequency properly. So if we have one on this end and it's not able to connect to the one on that end, that's when the gaps in coverage happen. So I'm not sure really what the benefit of having that map would be. We can definitely provide you with sites that we have that are currently in design. The network's ever changing. As more and more people start using it, there may be a need to have more co-locations throughout the area. Right now, when they went to design the entire network in Los Angeles, this is brand new. So they went and they're taking an overall view of every site within the area to see what ones can be connected to the other, because if they don't have what they call a clear line of sight, that particular location will not work. So it was determined when they were looking at their coverage map that this location does have the ability to connect with other sites in the area to make the technology work.
Okay.
So does that mean a tree cannot even be in front of that?
Trees
There
are a
can't be
problem.
anything that obstructs it.
Correct, yeah.
And how far away are these sites?
It depends. Some are a quarter of a mile, some are a little bit further. It depends on, the topography of the area. If there is any tree, that they have to try and shoot through, obviously there are some that we have to make that happen. And I believe the topography has the majority of the what works and what doesn't, whether or not they can actually, the antennas can see and read off of each other. And then to address the question you had earlier, Sprint does have the antennas above the proposed, so that's not an issue.
I want to go back to something you just said. You said a quarter mile away?
I think that's a rough estimate. I'm not real sure.
That's a
Some are
lot
further.
of locations then. Every quarter mile?
I think the entire network within the greater Los Angeles area, they're proposing about 1,200 sites. So again, depending on the topography, they're all throughout LA and what they can see, and there's some that maybe can see further out, a mile or 2 miles, and again, it depends on just where they're located and how they make that connection. Some of our facilities have up to, and I've seen 12 antennas on some, and others have, 3. And it just depends on how that technology is feeding off of one another. And I apologize, not being the RF engineer, I don't know exactly the technical, but in the layman's terms, that's how it works.
But they all have to be the same height, right?
Not necessarily. There can be some dip. We have some sites that are up on hills and some that are up on 2-story buildings, and I don't exactly know how they make it work, but it does.
So, from what you've just described, I guess I look at question 510 and would think that the answer is going to, why ask the question? The answer is yes 100% of the time. It's the nature of the facility.
Nature of the system.
So, and then it's, constructed, proposed, or anticipated. Well, you've already said, of course it's anticipated. You're always dealing with stuff. So, I don't even know why it exists as a question. It's of course it is. And then you're asking them to provide all the other sites, 1,200 sites, potentially? We're going through new territory here, and I don't know who we modeled this on, but man, it's going to be an interesting process to watch this form develop.
Maybe it's reference to that site, what links to it, rather than all 1,200, something like that.
Well, and again, it's how do they word it and what are they trying to say? Okay. Anything else you want to say that you've heard that you want to comment on?
As far as the 5.10, what we've done with other cities is just provided that information as to what sites are located within the city that they're connecting to. Like I said, I don't think it would be feasible to do a report on all 1,200, and that's ever changing. What they're finding sometimes is that, the link, they'll get it up and for some reason it doesn't work. So these are what they're basing on what they know to be true now, and then they're always adding new sites as well.
And you said this is strictly for 4G application?
Yes.
So you'll be putting more of this up in the future?
I would imagine, yes. And they're, trying to be very sympathetic to the city's requirements, and again, looking at co-location opportunities whenever possible, rather than, putting up new poles everywhere.
Just point of clarification, this is our city's form, correct? Yeah.
Do we know what city we lifted it from? Or did we develop original?
We
work?
created it.
Wow. Have we trademarked it or copyrighted it rather?
Trying to burn it in right now.
That was part of the ingest. I think our consultant that helped us with the ordinance prepared it, and he may have used a couple other cities.
I was just trying to develop some revenue, so.
Enterprise.
Anything else?
That's it.
All right. Anything else for the applicant?
I think I hate to just gloss over this form, and I know it'll be confusing for a while, and looking at it now and having gone through the process when we had numerous meetings and a lot of questions, it was important that we did this step, and there were a lot of issues in the city and a lot of concerns from staff and mainly the public. And I think over time, as we kind of work through it and work through the questions, as the vendors continue to try to understand it and try to answer the questions with as much detail as they can and understand what we're trying to glean from it, I think it'll really start to take some form. And what I hope does not happen is that we just put check marks on the form without really understanding what the question might be. I don't say we're doing that, but now that I read through question 5.15, it brings questions to my mind that I will probably have on the next application as I look through the documentation. So I think it's a good form. It's rather lengthy, but we put a lot of hard work into it, and we're trying to touch all the right bases. And I actually am pleased to see that we have it here and we're working on it, and I think as we get more accustomed to it, it'll provide more input for us.
Okay, sounds an awful lot like deliberations. Any other questions for staff? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close public hearing. Thank you very much. And we'll continue, commence the deliberation process.
All that I said before.
Okay.
Whatever he said.
Whatever you said.
Any other thoughts or comments, gentlemen? I guess my only comment would be, I think we've noted that for future applications, if you're relying on an expert, let's either have he or she here or something, that gives us documentation. I would suggest that we add a condition of approval that our approval is conditioned upon item 5.10 being addressed to the written satisfaction of staff's expert. Any objections to that as a potential added condition? And I think that closes, frankly, my concern over it. In general, co-location, putting it where it is, great place to do it. It's already there.
Right.
It's minimal impact. It's a good location. All that stuff's good. And again, we just have to keep battling through this form and process. With that said, unless there's anything else to be added by my fellow commissioners, could we have a motion?
I would add one other condition that comes back to me from previous approvals. I found that on past sites, we would approve a site and the configuration, and then in the future I would find, we mentioned the microwave dish, find it mounted on the structure, the building, as opposed to being on the antenna. Now, how that happened or whether I was involved in only one aspect of the process, I don't know. But I think all the antennas really need to be mounted on the the antenna, pole, whatever type it is, as opposed to being mounted on the building or the fence around the building. And I only state that because I've seen some up above Fern Lane where they're on the building, where they're on the fence around the equipment room or whatever it's called. So if you could add that, that's all I would have.
And maybe that's already in a condition, but basically what
Fine.
you're suggesting is that the location of the antennas be, what's the phraseology I'm searching for? Continue to be, in close proximity to that shown on the application,
Right.
to prevent that kind of relocation without.
Without approval.
And again, that'll still allow them to tweak it a little bit. And
Oh, yeah, just so it's not, there's a big difference between the tower and mounting it on the equipment building, equipment structure.
Fair enough. I think that's a good condition. What does everyone else think? Fine?
Fine.
All right. Who'd like to make a motion?
Okay. I'd like to move that upon review and consideration of all materials and exhibits of the current record relative to the wireless telecommunication facility case number PWTF 2010-001, located at 1470 Del Monte, and after having conducted a hearing on said matter, that the Planning Commission hereby recommends approval with conditions of this said application December 15th, 2010.
Second,
With the conditions that have been added, I was
With
diverted from it.
the two additional conditions that have been suggested by the Commission this evening.
second that.
We have motion and support. Call roll, please.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye, and a vote of 4-0, the Planning Commission has approved the wireless telecommunication facility review case PWTF 2010-001. The appeal process on this is typical, the 15 days and so on? Okay. So anyone not satisfied with this has 15 days to appeal to the city. Forms available at the city clerk, planning department, building department, at Permit Services Center. All right. Thank you very much. We'll move on to 7C, use variance case PVAR 2010-019. It's 326 West Broadway. It's a request to operate a 1,997 square foot massage therapy clinic within the Glendale Galleria in tenant space 2310, where the use is not permitted in the DSP Downtown Specific Plan Galleria District Zone. This variance case is exempt from environmental, and staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve the use variance case. Staff overview, please.
Yes, good evening, members of the Planning Commission. The second item on the agenda is located at 326 West Broadway, tenant space 2310. The tenant space named Oriental Chi. The applicant is Rodney Kahn. He is in the audience along with the owners of the business. On to staff's analysis of this use variance request. The applicant is requesting permission to relocate a massage therapy business to a permanent tenant space. The subject business, Oriental Chi, which performs chair, table, and foot massages to be fully clothed patrons, will relocate from its current location from outside the common area near Target on the first floor. The strict application of the provisions of the ordinance would result in practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship inconsistent with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance. The purpose of the Downtown Specific Plan is to define an area of regional importance and encourage a mixture of retail and financial, cultural, and entertainment uses. Strictly adhering to the provisions of the ordinance by prohibiting the proposed massage establishment at this location would result in unnecessary hardships and inconsistencies with the above described objectives. The proposed massage establishment provides service to customers of the Glendale Galleria and employees and patrons of nearby existing businesses. Since the location of the massage establishment is very limited within the city, since the locations of massage establishments is very limited within the city, only allowed in the C3 zone, this business would assist in providing a regional draw for the area as the DSP zone intends. The intent of the intent of the massage establishment is largely controlled by the possible criminal activities historically associated with this use. However, in recent years, massage services have greatly increased the popularity, and in this field is now widely acceptable as a legitimate business. Its automatic association with criminal activities, especially prostitution, has significantly lessened. The specific location of this request is highly visible, high foot traffic location inside of one of the region's most predominant malls. Moreover, there is a very involved on-site management company with an excellent track record, which is the Glendale Galleria. Therefore, allowing massage services in this location would be inconsistent with the intent of limiting such locations and businesses in order to control criminal activities. There are exceptional circumstances and conditions applicable to the property involved or the intended use or development of the property that do not apply generally to other properties in the same zone or neighborhood. While most sites adjacent to the Galleria in this area are Zone DSP, sites adjacent to Central Avenue, 1 block south of the Galleria, are Zone C3. The areas described above are considered a part of the greater downtown Glendale neighborhood. Not allowing a massage establishment in the Glendale Galleria would undoubtedly restrict its location in the downtown since other nearby areas allow this type of business with a conditional use permit approval. The business location is unique in its highly visible location inside a very busy shopping mall where there is a very involved on-site management company for the landlord with an excellent track record of controlling and preventing problems with these particular land uses. The granting of the variance would not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in such zone or neighborhood which the property is located. The massage establishment will be located within an existing tenant space and will operate the same hours of the Glendale Galleria, which are Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., Sunday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. The existing mixed uses along with the proposed business complement each other and build upon a regional focus that exists in the area. According to the applicant, there will be 4 massage technicians and all patrons will be fully closed. The granting of the variance will not be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance. Granting the requested use variance to allow the location of a massage therapy clinic in the zone would be contrary to the objectives of the DSP. The City of Glendale has very few massage establishments. The location of Oriental Tree, a growing chain of outlets offering massages, would serve as an amenity providing a service to employees and many businesses in the area, as well as the growing residential population in downtown. For these reasons, staff recommends approval of this application. The Glendale Police Department has imposed 5 conditions if this application is approved, and I'll read these into the record. Condition number 1, that all patrons and employees are to remain fully clothed at all times, no removal of any shirts or similar clothing. Condition number 2, therapists must wear a same business polo shirt or uniform shirt. Condition number 3, the floor plan shall be consistent with the plans presented to the Planning Commission with no private rooms allowed. Condition number 4, the windows of the facility must not be blocked by advertisements, shelves, or any other obstructions. And the last condition of approval would be the patrons receiving a table massage shall have a cloth covering their entire body. That concludes staff presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Mr. Lee.
I just have a technical question here. Why use variance versus CUP when it's in C3 zone versus this area?
The DSP does not allow massages. but it would be a use variance. The C3 reference would be a zone that conditionally permits the use. So therefore, a CUP would be used in that case. But in this case, the DSP does not allow massage at all. The use variance is needed.
I guess in other case, we can put conditions under that CUP or use variances from this commission. Anyways, yeah.
Sure can. Other questions?
In the background, it says that the business owner was cited for operating a massage therapy clinic without a zoning use certificate. So the city first initiated this, or did they ask for? They were just asking to move.
They were just asking, they moved into a tenant space and did not obtain a zoning use certificate. So a city code enforcement officer cited them, and now we're here.
So as they were actively attempting to
correct.
get this,
They were
cited then.
Correct. They were.
But the 3 years they were in the mall, they had.
That was legal.
They were legal in the common area down by Mervyn's.
So are they actively operating right now in this site for that? It says they were cited for operating a massage therapy clinic without a zoning use certificate.
They are currently still active. And still
I'm sorry,
operating.
so they were cited and they continued to operate?
Yes, they are still operating.
But they're operating in the common area, not in the...
No, they're operating in the tenant space.
Oh, in the tenant space.
In the tenant space.
They
right
have
now.
the variance for the floor area.
No, they don't have a variance for that.
No, they were an accessory use before,
Right.
so they didn't need a variance or anything
see.
to operate in the common area.
Correct.
But the minute they moved inside, that changed from
That
accessory
triggered
use.
that. Yeah, exactly. That triggered the.
How long have they been in that space? Do we have an idea?
I only have. Perhaps the applicant can answer that, but I have July 21st of this year, 2010. The code enforcement officer cited them, so definitely from July 21st. But
He was just walking around the mall and he just happened to see that.
yes, apparently yes. At the time, the zoning administrator opined to allow the use out in the common area without a zoning use certificate. Then I believe the applicant moved his business, and I'll have Rodney address that more detailed, better than I can.
I have two questions. In the agenda, it talks about moving into space, a small point, but it talks about moving to space 2310. But in the use variance findings, it talks about space IU04. And again, small point, but it seems inconsistent.
You're right. There is a plan that was submitted, a floor plan that the Glendale Galleria has, and the Glendale Galleria has their own labeling system. I believe that was IU10, the IU number.
Oh, so it's like maybe what we did on the master plan for the Galleria or something?
Pretty much something like that. And I can allow, or I guess Rodney would definitely clarify that as well. And I believe for mailing purposes, 2310 is a separate address. That's my best shot at it.
Okay, and then would you, or can you describe the difference in terms of licensing and or other requirements between massage technicians and massage therapists? We're on tonight.
Okay, yeah. I cannot answer. I do not know the qualifications for either of the two professions.
Did you turn to an expert on this case like you did on the previous one?
Do we have a massage therapist?
Yes, exactly.
We do not have a
I just had to
on-site.
say
That
that.
was good.
I
I
understand.
hope you all
that.
made site inspections.
Yes.
I'm sorry, so do we know if there's a difference?
I can check to see if there's a difference under city code. I couldn't talk to you about state law.
I mean, there may be a pay scale difference, but I just noticed they're using the phrase, technician versus therapist, and
that might be something that the applicants could answer to.
yeah, we'll try that as well. Any other questions for
Just
staff?
clarification, that's one of the conditions, that all licenses, permits for approval, so my question would be, are there certifications or requirements or licenses required for the technicians? So,
I just want to also make a note that on the application, it's different from what the city's background says. It says that under its current location, the city determined that it was an accessory use, and that upon moving into the suite, we triggered a use variance, so that's why we. So I mean, their application says that their current location is the
Oh, I see.
that common area.
I see.
Just a bit consistent.
Okay. They're currently in that tenant space right now.
Okay.
They're not in the common area.
Any other questions for staff? We'll have another chance. We'll allow the applicant to present their case. Mr. Khan?
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners, and City staff. My name is Rodney Kahn. My offices are located 1111 North Brand Boulevard, Suite 403 here in the city of Glendale. I'll begin my presentation and try to answer some of the questions that I heard as I was sitting out there. Oriental Chi is now operating and located on the second floor of what's considered Galleria 1, which is near the Express, Eddie Bauer. It's kind of a short distance away from where the Apple store is. Kind of gives you the context of where it's at in the mall. For the past 3 years, they operated outside of Target. And what was taking place was, and that's the reason there's a little bit of confusion, they continued to operate outside of Target, and without a use variance, as was pointed out, it was an accessory use, which is a little different. It's still in the same building. It's still the same use, but you step on this side of the line instead of that side, and now you need a use variance. That's fine. So they were doing well. They built their client base, and they signed a lease for this tenant space. They did not realize that they needed a use variance. So they had moved into this location not knowing that. So when they were cited, there was some discussion, well, what if they were to operate outside of the tenant space, outside in the passageway where the new tenant space was? Well, that didn't make sense because of circulation patterns. So there was some activity that was taking place both outside of Target and inside of the space simultaneously. So there's the clarification as it relates to being given and operating. The second thing is the reason we're here today is obviously for the use variance. In terms of the operation itself, it's pretty straightforward. I spoke to my client as the questions were being asked about the difference between a massage therapist and a massage technician, so he'll be able to answer that. I don't know the difference myself. But it does operate pretty much with the way you see the floor plan. There's actually 3 chair massage stations. There's 4 table massage stations. And then there's 5 foot massage stations. There's also, and you can see in the floor plans, there's a seating area and there's also restroom facilities. And that's the way the space kind of lays out. The hours of operation reflect the Glendale Galleria. In terms of the hours that they're open. I would like to add a few additional comments, though, as it relates to the findings. Obviously, we agree with staff that we think that this should be approved and go along with the findings that they made to regulate it. But Commissioner Lee raised a good question as to why this requires a use variance instead of a conditional use permit. And I think that's an excellent question. To me, I always thought in the downtown area, where you do have a mix of uses, whether it's a Oriental Chi, like a massage establishment, or whether it's a health club that does massage, or even a spa that does massage, it would make a lot of sense for that to be in the downtown area. I think the downtown specific plan, maybe we missed that one. Maybe that should be addressed, and maybe that's something in the future we can look at. But that doesn't exist right now. This is regulated by the downtown specific plan. The purpose, as many of us know, the purpose of the downtown specific plan was to define it as an area of regional importance, encourage a mixture of different land uses, whether it be retail, financial, residential, cultural, entertainment, or hotel-type uses. And in fact, I was looking through the downtown specific plan before I came here this evening, and one of the goals, 1.1.6, in fact, under plans and goals, purposes, It says to attract a wide range of activities to maintain a dynamic atmosphere. And one could argue that this type of use would encourage that type of an atmosphere. The strictly adhering to this provision, I think it's inconsistent. I think that this, as I mentioned, I think the downtown specific plan needs to be modified. I think this type of use should be permitted either by conditionally or by right, because it certainly makes a lot of sense. Second item was mentioned, exceptional circumstances. The Glendale Galleria obviously is very unique. It's an indoor mall. It's not just unique for this same zone or neighborhood, it's unique for the city of Glendale. There's nothing like it. We do have another regional mall, which is directly across the street, the Americana, which is an outdoor mall, and actually they both complement each other. The Glendale Galleria, as was mentioned, has not only a strong centralized management, but as mentioned also, there's a satellite police facility in the mall, which is very unique and very different. But it makes sense. It operates, it oversees, and that's what will happen here as well. The 5 conditions that were read that the police department mentioned, we have no problem at all complying with them. In fact, any of the conditions, we have no problem at all complying with them. It's very simple. It's very straightforward for this facility to operate in that manner. I do think it's important for us in terms of this use. This use is a very complementary type use. Hopefully, we're getting more residential land uses that are coming into the downtown area, not just commercial land uses. This type of facility would service that. It obviously also service the commercial land uses, but I think that whole mix makes a lot of sense, and this is one of the missing pieces because currently it's not allowed down there. I don't have a whole bunch other to add. We do have Stephen Chin, which could probably speak a little bit more to the technical aspects than I could, so I'll conclude my presentation. If you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Mr. Lee?
Yeah, how is this oriented chi different from Thai massage? I mean, I myself, I'm avid, I guess, user of all kinds of, therapy sessions like this. Health clubs in Koreatown area, there are plenty. I'm sorry to see that there isn't too many around here, so I have to travel down to LA area to get that. But it is something very complimenting, exercise that we go through in a very stressful environment that we work in. So I just wanted to find out what the difference was between this type of therapy versus Thai therapy.
Commissioner Lee, if I could answer that, I wish I could, but I can't. But I know that Stephen Chin can.
Okay.
But he'll be happy.
And the other question is that when you say you're fully clothed, some of the massage therapists that I go to, that we change into a robe, the more comfortable robe. So I don't know if this is, when you say fully clothed, that is fully clothed, but you have to change out your attire. So I don't know if that's being done here, or you're actually in street clothes and get therapy.
I can defer that to the owner, but what I've seen them in terms of their operation, it was not changing into a robe. It was clothed. In fact, I saw some folks come in. They may come in more of a sports outfit, shorts and a T-shirt, but it's not to change into a robe or anything like that. And in fact, our facility and the way it's designed doesn't accommodate for something like that.
What's the culpability, would you say, of something like the Galleria leasing space to something that's not a permitted use? You don't think they have a responsibility to be aware of what's a permitted use within their facility?
Do I think they should?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. So
I would think that they would know firsthand.
So exactly. So at this point, I can understand how the applicant would be unfamiliar with some of the rules, but it seems like the Galleria needs to do a little better job of knowing what they can actually lease. So
Agreed.
Thank you. So much for your future commissions from the Galleria, but thank you, Mr. Khan, for your candidness. Anything else for the speaker? Let's have the applicant himself step forward. And I don't want to hold up the process, but when it's completed, we will want you to fill in one of these cards for the record, okay? Please step forward and introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Stephen Chan. I'm owner of Oriental Chi. We have been doing that massage business in Glendale Galleria for more than 3 years. And also we have another mall which is called Northridge Fashion in city of Los Angeles, the same length of time. And so I found that lots of customers like our service a lot. This is a great city and great people, very nice customer. So just like to take this opportunity and really appreciate, thank everybody for being here this evening. And, my desire, intention really is trying to continue to do the business in here in the Galleria. And if you have any question, feel free to ask me. And I'm not expert of, this, but I try to, answer as much as I can, truthfully. Yeah.
Well, let's start with Mr. Lee's question that was carried over. The difference between
the Thai massage and the Orient. Okay, the Thai massage, as far as I understand, is very aggressive stretching, and the bending. It's a totally different type of massage compared to ours. And ours is more focused on like the energy passage, the channels of that, and also acupressure, the pressure points. So we combine some of the technique called shiatsu, acupressure and qigong, and plus some like a Western, technique, massage technique. So it's very, very unique modality because you also mentioned whether people have to change their clothing. At the mall we don't have the leisure to, they have let them change. We have been operating this same business for more than 8 years. We're all just in the malls, and the customer just, for example, like the people I wear this jacket, I just take off my jacket, and wear my shirt, and take off the belt. So that's it, and the shoes off, and just lay on the, on the belly on the table. So the technician will put on the sheets of, just cotton sheets to cover it. And starting working the the area, so everything basically there's no touch of the skin, very minimal, maybe the neck area, maybe facial, maybe the foot, that's the type of service we provide. But I found it's very effective. Sometimes maybe a little bit painful, but after the massage, you feel very light-weighted, just like feel much better, That's the difference. Yeah.
Okay, we had another question about technician versus therapist.
Yes. According to, in the state of California, as far as I know, that chair massage, reflexology, it doesn't require, be licensed by the state. But if you start doing the table massage, yes, it has to be licensed by the state of California. So that is defined as a massage therapist, not a massage technician.
So in this case, for your table massages, they'll be certified or licensed technicians?
Exactly, by the massage therapist.
And you've never gotten a problem where a technician has suddenly been doing a table massage and they really shouldn't have been?
We in the city of Los Angeles, all our people was a massage therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but here we have a massage therapist. Also, we have a massage technician too. But right now, for the last more than 3 years, we only do the table massage, which is not regulated, not required by the city. As a licensed therapist.
You mean the other way around, isn't it?
Right. Chair massage.
Yeah, the chair massage.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were all listening. So.
We're learning. Yes.
All right. Were any other questions at this time for the applicant?
Yeah, I may have missed this earlier. So how long have you been at the current location, the suite?
The suite is since, I think it's late May or early June. you know.
Early June.
Yeah, because the management, they have, they don't want us to in a common area. They want the people to have a little bit privacy. So that's why they pushed us. Actually, we like to stay outside because much more foot traffic, business much better. Yeah.
So in your negotiation with the mall people, when you were encouraged to move into the space, there was no discussion as to the problem that you might be facing with a zoning use certificate?
No,
So
not
that
at
never
all.
came up?
Yeah, never. Yeah.
Geez, go figure, a salesperson just trying to fill a space without,
Don't want to lose
Paying for the
tenants.
variance.
yes, they should. Anything else for the speaker at this time? All right. There's a rebuttal period if something comes up in the future, but otherwise, thank you very much,
Thank you
sir.
very much.
The fast catch from the permit plan.
Yeah,
Moved in
yeah,
June.
relatively. Further remarks from staff? Anything to add?
Yes, I have just two comments. I did step out try momentarily to try to print one letter of opposition. I was unsuccessful on printing that. I have a printer that's down, so I would like to read into the record. All I have is the first initial and the last name of an applicant or a concerned citizen, L, and then the last name is spelled Alejian. He opposes this variance application. That's simply what this variant his email stated. And I apologize for not being able to print
No
that.
reason?
No reason.
Just I oppose it.
I
I
oppose
suppose
it.
it.
So we understand his rationale.
Right. And the second point, when I did step out, I just wanted to see if Rodney had confirmed or clarified the space numbers regarding 2310 and the space IU04, what the difference was, if there is a mailing address or anything.
He hadn't.
I failed to do that. Once again, Rodney Kahn. There's an internal, IU04 is the Galleria lettering. The other is the address. So when we originally submitted, we put everything on there. We put both. And so that's where I think a little bit of confusion comes from. But there's one that's internal and there's one that's external.
Same location regardless.
Same location.
That's all the questions that staff had at this time.
All right. Anything from commissioners for staff? Mr. Foy, you want to say something?
Just real briefly, Mr. Garcia did some lightning quick research and determined that massage therapist is a term used in state law, and massage technician seems to be the same meaning, but that's a term used in the local law. So there's probably really no distinction between them.
Was the applicant right in what they were saying about licensing versus non-licensing?
As it applies to state law, yes.
Okay.
Chair versus...
Right.
And I do know also regarding the Galleria, their general manager, I think, left probably about 6 months ago. Person who was most involved with our city planning office. So that might be why there was a breakthrough in advising people to get a zoning use certificate.
Let's go back to this, because this is raising something. Based on what you just said, Mr. Garcia, does the city require the massage technicians to be licensed by the city?
It's a complicated answer, actually. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, there is a process that requires a city license, and we're looking at that. There was a state law adopted as it pertains to licenses, which provides that if you get a certain massage therapist license under state law, then you're not required to get the same license under city law. So if the applicant and his massage technicians all get that state license, they are not required to get the city license.
All right. And what we're doing here, Mr. Khan, and I'm sorry, Mr. Chin, is you may need some licenses you may not already have for operating in the city. You probably want to check into that first thing tomorrow morning. Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Other questions for staff? Rebuttal time for the applicant. Do we have any questions? Is there anything you want to add, Mr. Khan? Any questions for the applicant? We'll close public hearing, enter deliberation.
I guess I'll go this time.
Please.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I thought that, there should be more of these activities. The health-related, facilities, really to be in the downtown area, and for it to have a different type of use variances versus the conditional uses. I think needs to be looked at, and promote, encourage more of these activities, so that I don't have to drive all the way down to LA area to get the services. But they've been operating for the last 3 years pretty successfully, and now they're in a more, a professional setting environment. So I have no problems. I will support it.
Right, thank you. Who else?
I feel the same. I'm sure there are certain people in the city of Glendale that might not feel that massage therapy would be appropriate in a downtown area, but I think the critical part, and I'm basing this upon previous applications we've had, there were uses that people were doing the work without the required licensing or certification, but they were also having police trouble. So those are the kind of cases we've seen, and that in itself lends people to be suspicious. So I see that, but I don't see this as being anywhere near the same use. And if we're going to draw the kind of people we need to our city, to the Galleria and Americana and other places, this is something that people will require. So I'm seeing no problem with it.
Right.
I have no objections to the variance as well.
All right. My only comment, I think we're similar in this, is when an applicant approaches us and they've been operating without approval, illegally, if you will, we're always a little suspicious. We see an awful lot of people that try to break the rules and then, oh, I'm caught now, I seek forgiveness. I'm really comfortable in this case, especially given this situation, that I don't expect, a small business person operating within the Galleria, who's been, as far as they're concerned, operating the same kind of use, moving from common space into a unit. Clearly, they weren't playing any games, and we're all sensing that. The only thing that I think we would want to do, and it's a little bit redundant because they kind of have to do it, but just for clarification, is I think we would want to add a condition that any of their technicians/therapists that are employed and working at the Glendale Galleria have the absent state licensing obtain and post the local required licenses. I'm sure there's no objection because they kind of have to do it anyway. So
I think that's important, and the fact that this is the first, in a sense, sets the tone, sets the standard, and now you've kind of set the high water mark, which now other businesses have to attain to be successful, and it makes it a better business all around throughout the city. So I agree with that.
now as an aside, Montrose has got a lot of restaurants. It seems like a business closes and a restaurant goes in. I certainly hope that the Galleria just doesn't become, 150 different, massage therapy type of clinics. So, could become like, the country center for massage therapy.
Yeah.
He'll just
All
keep
right.
expanding, and he'll get all the customers.
Yeah. All right. Enough of that. Motion, please.
I'll do the motion.
Please.
Yeah. I move that upon review and consideration of all materials and exhibits of a current record relative to use, variance case number PVAR 2010-019, located at 326 West Broadway, and after having conducted a hearing on said matter, that the Planning Commission hereby recommends approval with conditions 1 through 12, and the massage technician/therapist to have a proper licensing from the either state or local agencies.
Perfect.
Plus the 5, to add the 5 police department conditions.
Those are included.
Oh, those
They're
I didn't
already in
read
the
far enough down the list. Okay.
Yeah, that was
Yes,
from
they
7
are.
through
I see it.
12. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Looking for support?
I second it.
Motion support, call roll, please.
Commissioner Lee.
Aye.
Commissioner Sheets.
Aye.
Commissioner Yasayan.
Aye.
Chairperson Kate.
Aye, and a vote of 4-0, use variance case number PVAR 2010-019 has been granted. Anyone unhappy with this has 15 days to appeal by filing the necessary fees and completing the paperwork at the Building Permit Services counter. Let's move on to Planning Department updates.
Thank you very much.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Well, last night, the City Council approved the public art ordinance that you saw at your last meeting. And then also, just for upcoming meetings, you have a full schedule. Your next meeting will be on January 19th, 2011, so we won't have, the first meeting in January we won't have, it's canceled. Following January 19th, there'll be a meeting on February 2nd and also February 16th. All three of the upcoming meetings have 3 items on them already scheduled, so it looks like you've got a full schedule ahead.
All right. Comments from commissioners? I have 2. First, I just wanted to comment that the findings on this previous case, just very well done. Nicely crafted, solid, well considered. And so whoever put those together, if that was you? Staff. Yeah. No, it was me. Yeah, so you've got a great future ahead of yourself in terms of
Yeah, being a politician.
supporting the bosses. And we just saw this glimpse of greatness, haven't we, gentlemen? All right. And then the only other thing is, Mr. Foy, if I could ask you to send a note to the gallery or reach out to the head of their leasing group and refamiliarize them with some of the constraints they may have. Anything else from anyone? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I say we're adjourned. Too late? No.